I'm going to start with a question. When it comes to conflict, interpersonal conflict, like when you disagree with a friend or argue with a family member, do you use one finger or two? Let me explain. As a certified conflict mediator, I have seen firsthand how hostile communication can lead to relationship breakdowns and division among loved ones. For example, one of my clients recently told me that she hasn't spoken to her father since the 2020 presidential elections. Once her beloved father is now her enemy. And when it comes to my own personal experience with conflict resolution, I've had my challenges, especially trying to create healthy boundaries with my mother as an adult when she still sees me as a teenager and I still see her as a bit of a nag. Sorry, Mom. Yet, I have experienced some great satisfaction in the healing power of conflict resolution, specifically as a volunteer facilitating restorative justice mediations aimed to get children, youth, out of the criminal justice system. And one thing I know for sure when it comes to conflict, hostility begets hostility. Whether it's the heated political conversations at the Thanksgiving dinner table, whether it's not so friendly water cooler chats at the office, or the inflammatory comments in your social media feed, hostile communication is both pervasive and severe. Hostile communication, like shaming others. Why did you do that? Or blaming others. Well, you made me do that. Or inflaming others. You're such a loser. These words can be harmful, hurtful, and shut the door to constructive communication. One thing I know for sure is shame plus blame plus inflame do not bring about positive change. Instead, it brings about the confrontational mindset of you're wrong and I'm right. And when individuals go into conversations with that binary attitude of I am right and you're wrong, it often escalates and compounds into the group mentality of we are right, which, by the way, is the acronym for war. Consider the Difficult Conversations Lab at Columbia University, where they bring people with opposing views on contentious issues like gun control, abortion, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, to come together in dialogues. These dialogues are recorded and later analyzed. Now, the lab has found many findings in this research, and I want to point out two specific findings here. First, conversations greatly improved when participants came to the table with positivity and goodwill. This created an environment of openness, so they felt that they can listen and consider diverse viewpoints. Second, the lab highlighted the effectiveness of the loop of understanding, which is a technique where you do the following. One person repeats back what they heard the other person say, as in, what I heard you say is that correct? This approach demonstrates empathy and the genuine commitment to active listening. Now let's get back to my initial question. When you're communicating, especially in a conflict, are you using one finger or two? Case in point. Number one, wagging the finger. The language of shame. When you shame someone, you trigger them into retreating, into withdrawing, disconnecting from the conversation, and building up a defense, like a fence, which really prevents productive communication. So to build bridges instead of barriers, we must refrain from using shame as a communication tool. Or there is number two, pointing a finger, the culture of blame. The brain actually interprets blame the same way it interprets a physical attack. So when you blame someone, their prefrontal cortex essentially shuts down, and the energy is diverted to defending themselves. So to encourage connection, we need to stop pointing fingers and start encouraging empathetic dialogue. And finally, there's one more finger. Number three, giving the finger. The ways we inflame. This provocative gesture really only fuels further division. Name calling, insults, hurtful words. They are a disrespectful, escalating act that only ignites the amygdala of the other person, their critter brain, the ancient part of the brain that activates the fight or flight response. So if you want to de-escalate situations, you must not use inflammatory words. So I just shared what not to do, what to avoid. Let's talk about what to do instead. Embrace the two-finger rule. The two-finger rule is a mental, reminder to turn hostility and conflict into peace. Why the V sign? Well, historically, it served as a sign or symbol of victory during wars. And during the 1960s, the Vietnam era, it was widely seen as a symbol for peace. And it was adopted by the counterculture, the hippies. For the purposes of this talk, the two-finger rule really shows our goal to create peaceful outcomes, bridging divides, and being able to find common ground as we solve conflicts together. And you remember the acronym for war? The two-finger rule is an antidote to those warring words. We are right. So let's see the two-finger rule in action. Recently on a Sunday evening, I was gathered at the beach with my friends. We were about to practice yoga. And as we were getting settled in with our yoga mats and towels, I suddenly detected a strange smell. I thought to myself, is that cigarette smoke? Upon looking up, I noticed there was a couple down the beach smoking cigarettes. Instantly, I felt the need to address the situation. Now, I didn't walk. I beach stomped over there, feeling resolute and justified in my actions because the city just passed a law prohibiting smoking on the beach. When I reached the couple, a bit winded and out of breath, I said, "Hey, there's a new law that bans smoking on the beach. Could you put out your cigarettes?" Well, the gentleman, he complied immediately, but the woman, she looked at me like, "Who are you?" And she didn't seem to know about the law. And I said, "Yes, indeed, a law was passed at the beginning of the year, and I'm right." And she still refused to put out her cigarette. She said, "I don't care what you say." My ego got puffed up. My critter brain was inflamed. So I began to chastise her. I said, pointing out the violation of the law, even threatening her that I was going to inform a lifeguard, while blaming her for me being late to my yoga class. She responded by saying, "I'll put out my cigarette once you leave. Now, leave!" Startled and frankly embarrassed, I realized that my approach escalated the situation and made matters worse. If I had only used the two-finger rule earlier on, I could have come to a more peaceful outcome sooner. Yet, as I share about this most recent story, this conflict in my life, the yogi versus the smoker, it feels so small, so insignificant compared to the horrific events and gut-wrenching scenes we see unfolding in front of our eyes today. My experience pales in comparison to our real world, right now, reality. And the one thing I realize, and I feel compelled to share, that the same guiding principles still hold true, whether it's a interpersonal conflict on a beach versus a conflict on a global scale, impacting millions with far-reaching social and geopolitical consequences. It often falls into one of these three camps when we make the other our enemy. If you think about it, there's various people groups united under a race, religion, under a flag. And when they approach the other, when they talk to their enemies, are they shaming them? Are they inflaming them? Or are they blaming them? In a world with 8 billion people, the only way we can coexist peacefully is if we approach each other in peaceful ways. So my plea to you, to us, as we walk into the world today, is to reflect on the following. Are you shaming others who are different from you? Are you blaming others who wave a different flag? Are you inflaming others you were taught to hate? My friends, I ask you this. When you talk to your fellow human being, are you using one finger or two? Thank you.